So I just was like, all or nothing. Like, I'm just gonna drop everything else I talked about I was gonna do and go for trying to make this product.
Welcome to the Work Undone podcast, a show where I sit down with maker entrepreneurs to find out what it really takes to start a business focused on physical product from the folks who are actually in the thick of it. I'm your host, Justin Hawkins, a designer, artist, entrepreneur living in lovely Portland, Oregon. Before we get started here, I just want to let everybody know there's going to be a bit of background noise. I'm recording in my work studio space, and there's a train that goes by, likes to make itself known, and I've got some neighbors who are makers, and they'll be banging around a little bit.
Welcome to episode 5. Today I'm going to share a recording interview I did with Peyton. She is an artist turned weaver who combined her love of weaving and textiles with her love of yoga to create a really awesome product. She's at the beginning stages of starting this thing, so she has some really good insight into the struggles and the difficulties of what it takes to get a product from idea to market.
So, should we start it?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I'd like to start off with just asking kind of a general background of like what sort of maker or craft or artisan sort of entrepreneur examples you had maybe growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And before you start, maybe just tell us what part of the country you grew up in, or the world for that matter.
Yeah, I'm from Reno, Nevada. I was born and raised. All my family's still there, and I lived there till I was 26, so pretty long time. I didn't get out for a while. And I went to my undergrad there, and I studied painting and drawing. So I have a Bachelor of Fine Art in Painting and Drawing, and so I actually started my art career in Reno, Nevada. And my very earliest role models were the local muralists. Actually, there was a couple muralists in town, but they were like my big role models. One of them was named Eric Burke. So I really aspired in my earlier career to be a muralist and a painter, which I did quite a bit of in Reno. I painted all over Reno, done a bunch of murals, and I also I've always had an affinity for design, and so I picked up graphic design and worked in some small studios in Reno as well, and did freelance stuff. So my early career was in two-dimensional painting, drawing. My passion was in large-scale painting. And that was kind of what brought me along through my early 20s until I kind of started to get the itch that Reno wasn't doing it for me.
Right. Did you get a chance to do any large-scale murals or paintings in Reno or in the surrounding areas?
Yeah, I've done there's a lot of murals that I've done in Reno.
Oh, cool.
I kind of have quite a bit down there. I ended up starting to work with that guy who was my role model, Eric Burke. And he kind of took me on as an assistant. We did a few really large-scale walls, and then I also broke off and did my own stuff there. Had, a pretty good, people really like murals there. So actually was able to do quite a bit. And then I left Reno in 2014 to go to Mexico to paint a mural, and that's kind of where I had a change of mind, a change of heart as far as my direction and career goes.
So yeah, go ahead and tell us what that direction
in
was.
Mexico, this was actually a very defining moment. I went down there to be in an artist residency in Oaxaca, Mexico, and my goal was to do a mural, large scale down there, which I did. I did actually a large scale wheat paste collage mural. It was really cool, really fun. But while I was down there, I was kind of having an existential crisis. I didn't want to go back to Reno. I didn't really feel like painting large scale was really doing it for me anymore, especially realizing you can paint on a wall and people can look at it and think about it and then they pass by it and it doesn't really do anything in their lives. And I was really having that problem of I want to actually do and make something that will actually change the way people think and not just an image. The image was kind of losing it for me. And so also I was in Mexico. I'm surrounded obviously by the culture. Oaxaca particularly is the indigenous capital of Mexico. So it's the textile capital. I mean, textiles are all over Mexico, but I was in Oaxaca and surrounded by these woven textiles and was just obsessed with with them. Came home with a bunch of woven textiles and just missed Mexico and missed that ability to have that handmade thing so readily in their culture. And got home to Reno, wasn't feeling it, and immediately applied for grad schools. Got denied to 2 grad schools, and then I actually applied to a school up here very last minute called the Applied Craft and Design Program. Got into that and moved up to Portland.
Is that PSU?
It's
right?
actually through Pacific Northwest College of Art and Oregon College of Art and Craft.
Oh, okay.
And
right.
they have their campus actually right down the street.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Their own building, right next to Instrument, in the same building, the old Instrument building.
Oh, right. Yeah, by the Franz bakery. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so you got into that.
Yeah.
And that was, you said that was last minute, so you were just kind of
yeah, because I came up here to visit a friend in the summer before the program, or before the summer, before the program was supposed to start, and I just checked out the program, and they were basically like, we just had somebody drop out.
No way.
And if you can get us your application by the end of the week, we'll consider you. And they did, and I got in. So within a week, I moved up here and started grad school.
That's amazing.
It was very exciting.
Yeah.
And it felt very right, so.
So when you went into that program, do you have to pick a sort of direction as far as craft direction or materials direction? How does that work when you're in the program?
So this program is the way it functions. Okay, the short answer is no. They want to completely break you apart when you get into this program. They want to take what you think you are and completely have you dissolve. And so that's why so many people, I went in there as a painter. I came out a weaving entrepreneur. And it took all of this breaking me down. And I kept talking about wanting to move away from the two-dimensional, get off of the two-dimensional. And I didn't know what that meant for so long. And so, your mentors are there to just push you and push you and push you to the point where you don't know who you are anymore and don't know what you want to do with your life. And then you kind of put the pieces back together. And so you don't actually really claim, you do say what you'd like to do, but I feel like everybody kind of shakes their head and they're like,
Right.
You think you know, but luckily they let you explore so much that you can really go in a different way, which is how I got to where I went.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And funny side note for the listeners, one of your mentors was my high school art teacher, Mrs. Sokolovsky.
Oh yeah, Shelley.
And she was my favorite.
Yeah, she's an amazing weaver.
Yeah, totally. So from there, you started weaving and kind of getting into this, testing out this idea that you were having in school. So you had a lot of opportunity to kind of prototype and work through a lot of process, it sounds like, in the school environment.
Yeah, the ironic thing is actually I went a year without even touching weaving at all. I went back to Mexico in between my years because I was still very lost while in my first year of grad school, and I actually ended up going to a yoga teacher training in Mexico in between my first and second year of grad school, and that's actually where I came up with the idea to make what I make now, which is the ritual rug. So it wasn't till 1 year into my graduate program that I came back from that experience and was like, I have this idea, I have this outlet of, for the first time in my life, I can go take a weaving class and actually try this out. So I just was like, all or nothing. I'm just going to drop everything else I talked about I was going to do and go for trying to make this product. I took one weaving class with Shelley Sokolovsky, and then that became my thesis. So the last year of my education, I completely switched gears from where I was heading in my life and just started to focus on this product and this brand. And I'm still doing it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm very happy I did that.
Yeah, I can tell. So tell us a little bit about the product.
So the product is called the Ritual Rug. It originally started out of, this idea that kept coursing through my mind since I started practicing yoga over a decade ago. It took me a really long time to get into yoga because I had such a hard time with not slipping on the yoga mat. And so when I first started practicing yoga, I would like slip so much that I would feel really uncomfortable and, you know, self-conscious. And it took me years to finally get into a yoga practice. And it really took the investment of putting a lot of money into like buying a good yoga mat and a towel. And finally I felt like I was comfortable enough on the mat to really get into the practice and stop thinking about, oh, I'm slipping, oh, I'm uncomfortable. And so I've always had this like sort of like war against the yoga mat and this angst and anger that you have to spend so much money on this object that doesn't really work that well. And so that's always been something that's in my mind. And for me, I want, just like any sport you do, like you're going to enjoy it more when you have a better working, the accompaniment is like highly functional, you know, with anything. So that's kind of, I've always had this idea, this like thing fly through my mind when I'm doing yoga of like, I wish there was ribbing on this mat, because, you know, it would make so much sense. And not everybody has a problem with slipping as much as others, but I do. And I always am like, if there was just some like ribbing, like I wouldn't be slipping around. And then, so that was where the idea came in. It was like this flash through my mind of like what that would look like. And then basically I started from the very beginning of like slicing up yoga mats just by hand and then weaving it in with organic fiber and creating ribbing. And that was the beginning of it. It was just basically a rug with rubber ribbing. And now it's turned into basically the rubber is woven throughout the entire product. So it's literally kind of taking, I wouldn't call it necessarily a towel, but it's natural fiber, which is hemp. I use hemp yarn and weave it in with the rubber so that it's the length of a yoga mat, but it's half the amount of rubber, and the rubber's just woven in to where you need rubber. So there's ribbing at the top and the bottom, which is just really, really pleasant on the hands and feet, but it's also amazing grip. And then towards the center, there's a lot of rubber in the center for your knees for padding. And then in the areas where you don't use it, there's like not really a lot of rubber. It's more of just the hemp textile. And yeah, that's what it is.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. It's certainly something that I've thought about and had trouble with, at least the slipping part. I never thought about the ribbing, but it's brilliant.
It feels good.
Nice.
That's what the plus was. I was like, I know it works, but it actually feels like a massage under your feet a little bit. It's cool.
That's great. So you're kind of in, have you sold any of these, or have you been weaving them by hand? You obviously graduated, and did that thesis go over well? You obviously passed, and you have your degree.
It went over okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the most popular thesis in the school, but yeah.
You love it. I mean, something you were passionate about.
Yeah, I was passionate about it to like have a really hard time getting through the school and then kind of letting it die and then having a rebirth of it like on my own time versus like having to do it to pass school.
Right.
I sold the ones that I made for my thesis. Those ones and that design is actually, I'm not using that design anymore. A lot of that has changed, but I sold those first ones. And now I haven't been focused on sales at all. I've been focused on prototyping and getting to sampling and
manufacturing.
Yeah, and manufacturing, because I went through a lot of phases of like, is this me sitting in my studio alone, like hand weaving one by one? And I was like, no, that's not the lifestyle I want actually at all. I want to be a designer, and I want to be working with a team, and I want to run a business. I don't want to just be sitting at a loom making stuff. So I figured that out by realizing I just need to outsource the production.
Right.
And that's where I'm at now.
And how's that going?
Good. I mean, I think it's going good. It's all an illusion that it's going good. I found this team in India, which it all makes sense to me. It took me a very long time to find weaving production, because I was looking in the United States, which I know people are going to hit you up and be like, there is weaving. And
I'm sure it's just super hard to find.
It's not production. And people do have studios where they weave and charge insane amounts of money for you to do that. But I'm looking for production. And so there's countries around the world that have preserved hand loom production. And India is one of those, like very much so. It's built into like their law that they are preserving the handloom culture and production as a part of their culture and their, I don't know, they just really value that.
Wow, that's great.
So that's a really cool place to start.
Yeah.
But for some, it took me a really long time to get to that because obviously I really wanted to find production in Mexico initially because it all made sense, but that didn't work out. Yeah. And then when I opened up my eyes a little bit and then found India, I immediately found the studio who immediately wanted to work with me, and I've been in contact with them for about 4 months now. We are going back and forth, and things just haven't been getting done on the email stream.
Right.
And that's where I'm at now, where I've decided to just go there and get it done. Like sit down with them and work hands-on with them and do sampling.
Right.
To go to production.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And did you say you're also looking at China as well?
Yeah, so China is, after lots of research, China is, it's really ironic because I used to be like, I will never get this product made in China, I'll never do that. And then I feel like it was something to do with the election of the president, and I was like, screw that. I'm all about China. I want to go to China. And so I mean, they just have, for instance, the hemp industry. I'm really set on using hemp yarn. Mm-hmm. Really difficult material to find, but China, most places around the world, even if they had a hemp industry, they stopped producing it because it became this sort of unpopular thing.
Yeah.
And hard to find markets for it. And China never stopped producing it. So they've been producing hemp yarn and textile for thousands of years. And so it's this tradition that they have on lock. And so it makes so much sense to go there and get, my textiles there.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that in China, and then I'm also sourcing yoga mat there.
Got it.
Yeah. With the long-term goal of using all like recycled mat, which is the goal. And,
right,
and kind of, yeah, and not have to go to a factory, but that's what I'm doing right now.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the materials from China shipped to India, woven in India,
yep.
and then shipped back to the States for.
Yeah, or anywhere. I mean, it's going to be e-commerce, so it could be. Sure. It's international. It'll be in international sales. I'm sure mainly the U.S. for now, but.
Right. Have you looked into fulfillment and like having warehousing and fulfillment, and through the e-commerce? Are you going to be shipping these yourself? Are you going to be? I mean, have you looked into that yet?
Great question. Yeah, I have, right now, yeah. This is going to be like probably, I mean, like, I'm doing a Kickstarter. I'm doing this pretty much like shot in the dark. I'm going for it and like dealing with things as they come. And, right. I mean, right now I have a huge basement,
right.
which is nice, but definitely as I go, it's kind of like phase one was like, you need to have some branding. So it's like I'm working completely focused on branding, and then like the right branding person comes in who works on websites, so I can hand that off and then start working on legal stuff and been like in that. And then now it's like, okay, we're getting to production, and now it's like putting my feelers out for the next person that I need to work with to like figure out that next phase. And
right. What sort of legal stuff did you have to work on?
I'm doing trademarking, and
okay.
I'm not patentee. I shouldn't tell that. But I'm doing as much legal protection as I can very early on, because I have big goals with it, and mm-hmm. I don't want to have to like deal with not covering my bases early. So
no, it's smart.
I'm working with lawyers, and they got my back.
Nice.
Which is nice.
Yeah, it's a smart thing to do for sure.
Yeah.
Cover the bases.
Yeah.
So it sounds like at this point, it's kind of all of your hands on deck for shipping and handling and all that stuff. You mentioned something about the Kickstarter. Tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, I've been looking forward to putting a Kickstarter together for a really long time. I was going to launch it in September, and now we're looking to launch it in October. But yeah, essentially my big goal is to be sending out this first small round of production by the holidays, like having people able to go on it, at least buy it, and then saying, okay, this will get to you by the holidays. So I'm really doing a big push for financial and also just exposure during this fall. So that's why I decided to do the Kickstarter around October, to really get it into the consciousness of people, and then also be putting the website together and all of that, and have this production ready to go when it's ready to, when I'm ready to get all that sent out. So the Kickstarter, a part of the Kickstarter, my boyfriend is coming with me overseas, and or not even just the Kickstarter, but a big part of the brand is full disclosure. I want people to know exactly where this stuff is coming from.
Super
like
important, yeah, for
your eco-friendly yoga mat is actually just made in this factory in China, just like everything else, and it's not that eco-friendly at all. They just put that on the packaging, but we need to know that, and I'm really interested in that. Like, I want to call myself a sustainable brand, but I also want to I just want to be challenging to existing brands of like, stop trying to hide stuff,
Yeah.
The only way we can make change is by like exposing and then addressing it. So
being as honest as you can.
Yeah.
Tell them where you're at and what your limitations are, and why you're doing things the way you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And then always trying to do it better and being open to that. But yeah. Yeah,
totally. So what have you learned about Kickstarter? Have you done any research and tried to figure out like how to make a successful campaign?
A few of the things I've been doing is reaching out to people who've worked on really successful campaigns. It's hard. I mean, it's hard not to get discouraged, because there's some people who are like, oh yeah, I just made another one of the coolest backpacks in the world, and I was just trying to get 12 grand, but we made 100,000, no big deal. And it's like, because of course I want that to happen, but you can't fixate on like any of that. And it's a balancing act of, how much to ask for and what your expectations are. The video is really difficult because some people just have crappy videos, but people just love the product so much and it goes wild. And then some people put like full production videos, and we're doing a little bit of the middle. I'm using like my close friends' resources for the video and stuff like that. I'm putting the whole campaign basically together. And a big part of it is press releases is something I learned about, is finding people that will talk about it, like even this, but also like influencers or just blogs and stuff that'll be like, wow, this cool product is on Kickstarter right now.
Right.
And putting together like an Instagram that is like constantly updating, like this is happening.
Yeah. There's a lot to it.
There's a lot
of
to
moving
it.
Parts.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, and I think I mentioned this to you when we ran into each other a little while back, but one of my favorite, it's not really even a hack, it's kind of seems obvious once you hear it, but I was kind of blown away by it. It's like, have that extra couple $1,000 that you need that at the end, in case you need it at the end, like have it stocked away. Because I don't know if a lot of listeners know this, if a Kickstarter campaign doesn't actually get fully funded, you don't get any of the money.
Yeah.
So throwing that extra few grand in there at the end to make the goal, goes a long way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, that's something I'm still going back and forth of, do I shoot high and just be like, oh, we got it? Or do I shoot low, and expect to go over?
Well, what are your minimums? Do you know yet?
Of what I need to have?
Well, your minimum, they're probably requiring you minimums for the product, right? They're like,
they as in?
The manufacturers in India, they're like, the fewest amount we'll make is 300, let's say, or whatever. Do they have a minimum?
They actually have a really low minimum.
Okay.
I'm not having, if I don't have to, like for instance, this doesn't go super well initially, and it's not something everybody wants immediately, like, which I don't anticipate that, but I won't be diving too far into the hole. So it's like I can do the bare minimum, but there's also that balancing act of one of the guys we talked to about Kickstarter said, oh, there's this wallet company that was just like, we make these cool little wallets and we just need 10 grand to get started, and it just went crazy and they weren't able to meet the demand and they had to just shut down.
Right.
So it's also, like yeah, it's a lot of guessing. And
well, I've also seen North Glassware. Are you familiar with them?
no.
They, I have it up on my shelf. I'll show you to you after the show. But it's basically a hand-blown pint with Mount Hood in the bottom of it.
Oh, wow.
Shaped in the bottom of it.
Cool.
They have Rainier and stuff. Anyways, I worked with them, the two guys that started it up at Cinco, a design firm up the street. And when they did it, they blew their, they got so many backers. It was crazy. And we're all looking at it going, there's no way they're going to be able to fulfill these in this time increment. But these guys have been doing it. They're pros, and they've been doing this sort of like production, design, physical product, industrial design sort of stuff for a long time. So they did increments. So they did there was like a 300 max, and then that was from September to October that would be delivered. And then the next 300 was November, December.
Right.
So, because their production, these are hand-blown pieces of glass.
Right.
So that's one of the ways they got around it, so that might be something to think about.
I think like something that I want to be known in the brand too is like these will sell out. Like I'm not a Target manufacturing where you're just gonna always have this endless product. Like I want this to have an heirloom quality feeling, and I want that'll be a part of, knowing about the product, knowing about the brand is there's gonna be a set amount of these, and I want to do color runs per season, stuff like that, where it is a really special object. I mean, that's another part about the ritual rug that makes it different from a yoga mat is it's beautiful and it's durable, mendable, like it can last you. It's supposed to be this thing that you can have forever.
Mendable, you said.
Mendable.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, just like any rug, because it's a textile, you're able to mend it, which is also
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm working up to when I have a studio space and all of that, which is all in the periphery. But
so is that something that would the customer then ship it to you and you would fix it? Is
yeah,
that something
it's
that
like
you would
looking
have
at the model
videos and they would you could explain how to do it themselves, that sort of thing?
Well,
both.
Yeah, I mean down the lines that's where I'm getting to, but it's just the idea of like how Patagonia is like if you want to, we can mend it. And so it's just like the object itself is there. All the infrastructure isn't there yet, but you have a mendable object that if it rips, it's not something you throw away. It is definitely something that can be, not definitely, I can't say that because you could also like tear it in half, but
sure.
It just be given that it is a textile, just like you can mend your clothing or a rug. It has the potential to be fixed.
And then it actually gives it that character, and
Yeah.
that kind of wabi-sabi.
And that's
sort
what I
of-
love, the wabi-sabi, the heirloom object that is, the thing that's handed down, that quality is something you look forward to and makes it more valuable.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the Indigo Dyed series.
Me too. Totally.
Yeah.
I don't think that's too far off.
Good. So in this process, most entrepreneurs and makers, they're struggling. They're trying to figure out how this works. What kind of sacrifices or trade-offs do you feel like you've made to make this thing work? Something that you're so passionate about.
I think there's a lot of sacrifices, and there's little things like having to make your overhead just in your life as like minimum as possible. And I'm extremely lucky for the way things turned out, because basically the things aligned for me to go forward with this business. I couldn't have done it any earlier, and I couldn't have done it any later. But like I don't have a car right now for the first time in my life, which has been initially it was a huge sacrifice. Like, how in the hell am I going to live? But getting rid of a car and that overhead has been an amazing way to save money. I live with my boyfriend, so we have very affordable rent. I have a very low budget. I sacrifice, I don't sacrifice everything. I like to eat well and things like that, but I mean, I'm not living like, I'm sacrificing basically like my friends who have their job and they have their paycheck and they have the thing they know is going to like, they have a savings account.
Consistency.
I don't have a savings account right now because I'm completely putting every single penny into like my investment of this business. So you sacrifice a lot of stability and financial stability, and even just people looking at you funny for not having a full-time job. And it has taken a ton of work for me to get to the point of confidence to be like, oh, no, this is all going to work out fine. And like actually believe that when I say it.
Yeah.
But I'm there. I do feel like I'm there. And it, and that's what's making this work, is feeling totally okay with putting every penny I have into it, and then every single day working on it. And yeah, it is. I think it's a ton of sacrifice, and it's scary, and that's why not a lot of people just be like, I'm going to start a business today.
Yeah.
So
you working part-time right now? I think you mentioned you were doing some freelance work.
I do freelance work, but I wouldn't even call it part-time.
Yeah.
I would say that starting this business has become my full-time job.
Yeah.
But I do freelance. Graphic design here and there. And I've always worked with this artist. I assist a really amazing artist here in town, Dana Lynn Lewis. So I'm kind of her go-to right-hand artist assistant. And so yeah, I do like odd jobs. I'm an assistant for a few different people actually. And then yeah, freelance work, that kind of just basically that stuff keeps me afloat. And then I'm constantly looking for ways of investment and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. And what do you mean by investment? Sorry, I thought you meant you were focusing.
Just constantly looking for that next stream of money. It's just like a constant, like, okay, in 2 months from now, I need to have like this next boost. And then that carrying me over till I get like the big boost to go into production. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to get money too early on, because you'll end up
in the company you're talking about.
Yeah,
got it.
Getting any investment too early on. I think that's something to consider, like staggering your money, and staggering how much you ask for until you're really ready.
So you're putting it, sorry, maybe to understand this, you're putting your own money into this, or you're getting outside money and putting into the company so far?
It's both.
Both, okay.
But right now it's all seed, like very, very seed funding, like friends, family.
Got it.
I haven't asked for any like venture capitalist money or anything. And that's not anything I'd even want to do until I'm like
right. Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the right
Yeah,
time.
I would say like not jumping into it too quickly financially is, because then you're like really, you have a lot to lose at that point.
Yeah, and you're playing with somebody else's money.
Yeah.
I know about that. So you mentioned, something I wanted to ask. You were talking about the graduate program you were in. Mm-hmm. Applied Craft, what's it called again?
Applied Craft and Design.
Okay. They're kind of teaching you how to create something and make a business out of it. Is that kind of the idea? And sell it? Or was there any business aspects to it, and teaching you about this part of the thing, about how to make a business out of it?
That's how they advertise themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they do that very well. But they do like the first, and it's a very young program. Like in a way, like every year is a little bit of a guinea pig, because I think it's 8 years old now. So when I was there, it was about 6 years old. Very new, extremely progressive.
Wow. Yeah.
It's very progressive, and it's awesome in theory, but there's definitely still a lot of like, when I was still there, I mean, the entrepreneur side is what I was the most attracted to, because I did the art school. I know how to critique the shit out of something, but I still don't know how to like think about money and think about how to like make this work for a long-term thing, because being an artist is so much about just like, I don't know, it's not business. So this program I thought was really gonna like hone in that business side, but it was still very much more on the fine art side. And that's, I think, what it's constantly battling with, because there are still so many people that really want to push that fine art, that theory, and that kind of battles with the just pragmatic running a business. Yeah. And so there is a sort of identity crisis in there, but I think most people get out of that school ultimately finding their way in a really creative way. But the actual program can be really kind of a mind fuck. Like can be confusing.
Yeah.
Because as an artist, I think you're so critical of that's where I'm an artist who's starting a brand, but I'm first of all an artist, and I think I started a brand because I'm so critical of product and of brands.
Right.
And so
you're scratching your own itch.
And I was like, oh, this is so
doesn't
frustrating.
exist.
I can like put this in an art gallery and bitch about it, or I can go like to the core of it and make a change there, which is what I did, or trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's after my own heart. I'm just the same way. I definitely kind of went the same route. What do you think's been your biggest hurdle so far?
Oh.
And that could be either like...
I feel like every month it's a different hurdle, but...
Okay, what's the latest hurdle? Freshest in your mind.
The most fresh was like yesterday, because I think for me, just in general, it's planning and really sticking to a plan, because it always seems to be like, all right, the plan is this, and 2 weeks later it's like, nope, scratch that, now we're going in this direction. And
right.
I'm not going off of a template at all on how to do this. I'm reading as much as I can, reaching out to as many people, but I'm making it up as I go.
Yeah, there's not really.
And that's really the only way to do it. And
if you discover one, let me know.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I think that's actually the number one thing to know as an entrepreneur is like, you're doing it as you go. And so this latest one was, I was like, I'm going to China. Ooh, there's a cheap ticket online. I'm buying it. I'm going to China. This is awesome. And like, did not realize I needed to get a visa. So stupid. Obviously, you need a visa to go to China, but somebody brought that up to me in conversation. They're like, oh, there's a visa. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I'll get that. I literally just got it in today, which is the very last day I could have done it. Ended up paying hundreds of dollars more than I should have had to pay, to get it expedited. And the process to get a Chinese visa is crazy.
I bet. They're
crazy. And I'm like, well, of course they are. It's China, and they're totally different than us. Like, we have this crazy president. They're probably not that excited about us right now. And so it was like this ignorance of like, oh my God, I almost really, really screwed that up.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money, to just accidentally glitch or whatever and not pay attention. And so that is the latest hurdle of
What about India? Is it different in India?
So India is actually a lot easier to get a visa.
When you get there?
You can do an e-visa actually, where you just apply online and like photocopy your stuff, and quite a bit easier for India.
Nice.
But yeah, the China one has been literally the last 2 days. I have been sitting hunched over my computer, like getting all these things in order and like crossing my fingers it gets approved. So that was the most recent hurdle. But other than that, the hurdle is always fundraising. Like, you can't keep your mind off. It's hard to balance that. Like, you have to have your mind on money while simultaneously trying to be optimistic and creative. And lately it's been time for me to stop being optimistic and creative, or not optimistic, but really focus on like business plan and like putting together all of this stuff and making it, doing the not fun stuff.
Right. There's a lot of that.
Yeah. But it's rewarding once you start to get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what do you, how do you envision your company growing? What's kind of like the ideal size of your company, you think? What do you think it's going to be in the future?
So I feel like I'm doing, this is a broad statement, but the opposite of what a lot of people do. I think a lot of people start small scale, especially in the craft made objects. They start making them in their studio, and it gets bigger. I think of like Heath Ceramics or something, like, oh, we're really good at making this thing, and then it just like grows from there. And I'm sort of starting by going to production, and I want to eventually open a weaving production studio in Portland.
Oh, cool.
So kind of from big to small in a way. And my goal with that is, for one thing, to have a weaving production studio that is available. And so that's the kind of the route of going from like, I have retail e-commerce, and then moving towards having a smaller, that could grow into a bigger weaving studio, but essentially a weaving studio / production studio where I can personally be working on commissions. I want to do commissioned ritual rugs where, people can get them tailored to their size, their colors, etc.
Right materials.
To really push that heirloom. You know, like it's so rare that we see tailored shops, and I have like nostalgia for that concept.
That's great.
So, yeah, that's brick and mortar is where I'm moving towards. But then even beyond that, the brand Ma, I want to turn into a B Corp. And I want to be working, well, I want to expand my product scope quite a bit. And I want to be working with weaving cultures all over the world. And that becomes sort of, Ma Wovens is the sort of umbrella brand with woven products that come in that are just from all different cultures, because I'm really interested in how weaving is this thing that makes us like similar. It's in like every culture around the world, and they all have their unique style. And so, you know, right now I'm working with India, but I look forward to like working with other countries and different products. And that's this big kind of pipe dream vision of where now I'm starting out with the ritual rug. I want that to just like be the beginning.
Yeah. So you mentioned the umbrella brand Ma. It's MA, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's that mean? Where did that come from?
Ma is, so it started out originally, it kind of started out as the Sanskrit word Ma, which translates to make, produce, create, and it's the feminine action of make, produce, create. And nice. So you'll see it after like the goddess names like Kali Ma. So it's saying like Kali, the producer of her entity. Right. And it's like the act of creation. And so it has meaning in Sanskrit, which I really like, but then it also has meaning in our Latin language. And so it's the feminine root prefix of words in Latin, or any branch that comes out of Latin. So like obviously ma, mama, we're all used to like, oh, that means mom, and like so many variations, but also like matrix is a feminine. Ma is the prefix of matrix, and it's a feminine root.
Oh, wow.
And then matriarch, M-A, matriarch. Sure. So you'll see that kind of in all kinds of words. And so it's like really interesting to see that it's a word that, again, it's a cross-cultural concept. It can apply. And I know that it also has meaning in different cultures, but those are the ones that I focused the most on. And then for me, Ma as a brand is really speaking to Mother Nature. So Ma as like the mother of everybody. Right. You know, we all can understand that. It doesn't have to be like women only. It's not a female brand at all. It's more about just like the thing we all appreciate. And Ma is like everybody's mother. It's everybody's, you know, nurturing thing. We can all identify with loving that Ma. And it's all about like, my brand is really about respecting Ma and finding ways to respect the nature, and then also people, you know. Yeah. So that's the brand.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It works.
Thank you.
Real well. So, I know you're just kind of starting on some levels. I know I hate to say that because you've done so much work, and it's obviously, but there's no product on the shelves yet.
Yeah. It's been 2 years and still getting there.
Right. Has it been worth it so far?
Worth it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that like, I don't know. I know this sounds really cliche, but it's been worth the struggle. And there was a 6-month period of time where I completely killed it and was like, this will never happen. But it just kept coming back.
You killed the brand?
I killed everything.
Okay.
I said, this isn't going to happen. I was bartending. I went back to bartending.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that was terrible. And it feels like I'm not going to like stop. Like this just won't fail because I'm like, this is what I want to do. I'm like so clear on it, and it kind of involves everything I love. It involves yoga, it involves traveling and cultures and textiles, and there's nothing else. Like I don't want to sit on a computer all day. I don't want to like, this is what I want to do, you know? So it's totally worth it. As scary as it is a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we do some short little rapid fire questions sort of
Sure.
things here? What's your biggest time saver, do you feel like, that you've kind of I mean, I know, again, you're in the beginning stages of this, so maybe there's not one yet that you can come up with or you can think of, but maybe there's a new discovery that you've gotten. I mean, you said something to the effect of like, okay, we're focused on this thing, and then I found somebody to take it over. Focus on this next thing, and then I found how to figure that out. So you kind of learn things and how to make them more efficient.
Okay, I think that maybe this will be an answer to that, is knowing when to delegate is become the most a really humbling and also like the most helpful thing, to knowing when it's like, okay, I've reached my end on this and now I'm wasting time, and reaching out to your friend who's a designer. Like when I reached a wall with the branding, even though it was there in the end, but I was like cross-eyed and like, okay, I'm just sitting here spending hours a day like fiddling with lines and changing fonts, and like, this is stupid. Like, you need to be working on your business plan. And so knowing when to delegate is like the best thing. And at first you're like, no, this is mine, I'm a designer, like I can't hand these things off. But I'm just like, get out of my plate now. I'm like excited to just be like, I'll pay you this. Like, I don't even care anymore. I'm more interested in getting it done and getting it done well than me owning everything. So like getting things off my plate and focusing on what's the most pressing thing has been, the time saver is just knowing when to delegate.
Well,
in general.
I'm impressed. That's a lesson that takes people a long time to learn. So it's good to hear you've learned it quickly.
Or possibly the hard way, but yeah.
Well, I think we all have to learn it the hard way.
Yeah.
It's you're constantly kind of like pushing up against that line of like, okay, how much can I
Are you trying to own it too much?
Yeah.
And
How do you save things, notes and things? Do you write things down? Is it digital? Is it?
I cannot brag about my organizational methods, and it really needs to change. I have always done it this way, and it obviously needs to change. But I have, I'm a very, no computer, no organization, no like putting my meetings into like the calendar on like my computer. It all has to be written. I'm really visual. I'm really like, once I write something down, it'll stay with me. But if I'm like typing turns into like the same as everything. So I have 2 notebooks. I have like I have my planner, and then I have a notebook that comes with me everywhere. So I have, at least the planner has some sort of like structure to it. So that helps. But then the notebook is just every single thought that comes through my mind, every single interaction I have throughout the day, doodles, drawings, numbers, it's just all.
Oh, that's great.
And there's something about my visual thing where I'll remember where that note is because I'll remember what it looks like.
Oh, that's awesome.
But that is not a way that most normal people will take,
No, but I think it's actually a very effective way to take notes.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been starting to learn a little bit about journaling and bullet journaling and all the other options for journaling and putting your thoughts down, as well as organizing your thoughts, right?
Color, like, honestly, for me, like, putting color towards something is really effective. I mean, this is seriously coming from an artist trying to start a business. Like, for me, color will stick with me, but like numbers and lines just will go right through me. So you have to have your own system.
I ran across I think it's David Allen. He's really famous. I can't remember his book off the top of my head. Anyways, but yeah, he says something to the effect of the mind isn't it's the mind's job to come up with ideas, it's not the mind's job to save those ideas. So it's your job to actually write those down, so then your mind doesn't have to hold on to them, and you can have that
really
freedom it needs to make more.
It's like sad how many things you've lost because you didn't write it down.
Yeah, but I also think that if it's that important, it'll come back up again, and it'll keep coming up. And if it's similarly to Elizabeth Gilmore for The Big Magic, she, the one who wrote the Eat, Pray, Love, her book about big magic, and this idea that the muse will come to you and speak to you this idea to you, and if you don't take advantage of that, it'll go somewhere else. So it's not that idea doesn't
or it'll just like
live on somewhere. like it doesn't exist and it'll never exist. It's just that you don't get the opportunity maybe at this time to...
And I could see how it also just manifests in new ways, like throughout, until you get it, until you actually like put it into something.
Yeah.
It'll keep haunting you a little bit until it's like gotten to its potential.
Morphs, evolves, kind of like, I mean, this podcast for me, it started out way different 7-8 years ago in my head, and it's now become this. So it's and then from here it'll continue to evolve into something else as well. So so you mentioned that you have a big basement. Is that where your studio's at? Or are you just kind of working out of coffee shops, out of your living room, sort of a thing right now? You don't really have any physical product or anything you need to be building right now. It's all kind of computer work, right?
So actually, I've done all the samples so far. So I have a loom in my basement.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, like
Nice.
a floor loom, and I got that after school, and so that is, I don't know, I just feel really lucky right now for, like I said, I feel like when the time aligns, you're like, wow, everything is so perfect right now. I have this huge basement, which just happens to be able to fit a loom. And not everybody knows what a floor loom looks like these days, but they're big. They're extremely burdensome. They like take up a lot of room. They're really heavy. It's really like you have to take it all apart just to get it through doors. It sucks. But anyways, once it's there, it's like, it's really cool to have. But so yeah, I have that basement space, and then I have a office space as well in my house. So I spend a lot of time at home. I spend a lot of time at home, which was really awesome during the winter.
Yeah.
But this summer has been more challenging to be like, all right, stick around. Like, you're still at home. You woke up here. Now you're still here. And yeah. But I have just all the space right now, and the means to go about doing this, which I didn't have that like 10 months ago. You know, it just all kind of fell in place, and now I am able to do sampling. Like, oh, if I want to change something on the sample, I could go down to my loom, work on that if I really needed to. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess my last question, if you knew what you know now, back then when you started this, would you start it at all? Like all the struggle and all the hardships you've gone through?
Yeah, I wish I wasn't so hard on myself.
Ah.
You know, like it all turns out okay if you just keep, you know, you're not... I think the hardest part is when you first start trying to bring an idea into the world and you first start talking about it, everybody's like, no way. And that's like what I struggled with in grad school, is people were like, how in the hell, how are you going to do that? What are you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Like an idea starts out that way.
What were they, it seems pretty straightforward. What were they concerned?
I mean, it was both things. It was like me starting the seed of an idea. And mind you, I'd never woven in my life. And I was like, oh, look at this. You know, the first versions of my ritual rug. And it wasn't even called that at the time. It didn't even have a name.
Sure.
It was just like this janky, like first grader woven thing that was like falling apart. And I was like, I swear, it's going to be a product someday. And where are you going to have this made? Where are you going to get the money to, you know, all of that, all of those questions that are like, and like you're in grad school and you know, you're going into debt, and then you're like, and somehow this is all going to work out. And now that I'm seeing things actually working out and seeing it come together, totally worth it. But I wish that I didn't let other people's comments get to me so much. You know, like it's really hard to fight off people's negativity or like people's doubt of yourself. And that's what made me stop for 6 months. Be like, nope, not happening. Because I gave in to what they thought. So yeah, I wish I knew that like it's all gonna turn out okay. And I don't know that yet either. It's still not on the shelves, but yeah.
You've got the confidence.
I wish I didn't let people get to me so much in the beginning, and just was like, this is a cool idea. Screw it, do it.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you're doing it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we'll definitely be sure to check out your Kickstarter.
Yeah, I'll let you know when that happens. Hopefully October.
All right. Great. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there you have it, episode number 5. I really love the idea of somebody going from an artist to an entrepreneur. I feel like I can relate to that in quite a few ways. So it's so great to see somebody else doing it. Few updates. Kelly's decided not to do a Kickstarter after all. She had somebody contact her, some business pros, and they suggested that she just do pre-sales on her website. So she's taking it a little bit different strategy, and it's been a few months and she's finally getting some of the actual product from the manufacturer. She just did South by Southwest, and she had 50 yoga mats there that could be borrowed and were used by many people at South by. Be sure to go to her website, ma-wovens.com. That's ma-wovens.com to check out the product. And if you use the discount code WORKUNDONE, all one word, you'll receive 20% off your purchase. As always, be sure to check out workundone.com for all the show note links to this episode, as well as photographs of Kelly in her basement studio with a loom. If you enjoyed this episode, we have several more. Obviously, this is number 5, as I just mentioned, so there are 4 other ones to listen to, and plus a fun little trailer, audio trailer. So check us out also on Instagram. You'll find us there at Work Undone Podcast. As always, big thanks to Needle Drop, a local Portland music licensing company, for providing the music. And as always, thanks for listening. I appreciate your support.